So if this was the reality show that you can pretty much trust Icon would never do, this was so simple and it happened in 7 days. So it started with Craigslist, found a 49 Merc, original owner, sitting under the tree, never done, motor missing, grabbed it, brought it to the shop, 3D scanned the undercarriage, called Art Morris and said, yo, homie, make me a chassis. Delivered the chassis, got the motors, got the controllers, went to Stealth EV, our buddies down in Orange County. Wonderful group, very small at that time, one-man show. Now they're part of a larger group and they're killing it. See great things coming from them. Bring back the rolling chassis, go, okay, that worked well. Media blast the body on the B side, clean it all up, recaulk it, etch it, prime it, seal it, polyurea coat it, polyurea coat the inside floor, pre-assemble on the chassis, run all new 12-volt electrical, run all the CAN network stuff from AEM, make everything all pretty, CNC design the motor, knock that out, hide all the electronic wizardry within it, plumb the cooling system, exhaust. Oh wait, that's right, there's no exhaust, back up. Interior, while we're doing all that, Tony's knocking out the interior. I make some material selections. I get the leather made for me. I get the textile from Knoll, knock it out, stitch, stitch, done. Headliner in, glass back in, charge the bugger, and drive. So there you go, that's a wrap. Come back and watch next week's episode when we just kidding. Come on, folks, you know me better than that. Here's the real story. I hope you got some time. All right, so this one's been a long time coming and a long time brewing, but Pedro and I decided to sit down, slow down, and do a long format mini doc because this project means so much to us and there's so much innovation and story to its creation that I figured it was worth the deep dive. So I don't even know where to start. So I guess let's just simply start at the beginning. So when we started this project, we had already done a couple EV builds. Now, they were both part of our one-off Derelict and Reformer series. We had done the little Fiat and we had done the VW thing. And those were cool. Clients own them, are still happy and putting them around. But they would, shall we say, be a bit more simplistic than I really thought was ideal. And as I've been watching, talking, listening, and studying this whole new EV craze retrofit into vintage vehicles, I don't know, I'm kind of a picky bitch. I guess you guys figured that out already. But to me, there were a lot of things missing. Not to discredit the builders, but I think the industry at large is just so focused on the do-it-yourself market, and the poor builders, the market just only has so much price tolerance in mass, right? So I think they were striking things off the wish list to be able to deliver something that could be built time and money efficient, but not design efficient, not capability efficient, not ultimate safety and range and performance efficient. So we were originally hired to build this 1949 Mercury Coupe as a sort of standard Icon Derelict. So big ass V8, all the usual thumping stuff, and the client had already committed to it. And wonderful, wonderful client. Frankly, at that time in building the brand and in EV tech, we were seeing so much rapid evolution and changes to the tech that it kind of concerned me, because a key thing for Icon is we're trying to upcycle classics, recycle classics in a way that is honoring like more traditional industrial design arts with respect to simplicity, longevity, build it standard off the shelf wherever possible, but without any of the modern pencil pusher, focus group, shareholder, Wall Street driven mandates, which are more about make it good enough to last the warranty cycle. Because unfortunately, like most publicly traded industries, It's a better business if it falls apart and you throw it away happily and you come back and you get another one. Keeps the GDP flowing, but it also keeps the landfills busy and stacked full of crap. So I've always been down with as much as possible in transportation design, doing like cradle to cradle approach. So not a definitive life cycle, and things are submodular so they can evolve over time, because we want these high functioning automotive sculptures to ideally last forever or decades, right? So EV was kind of, from my odd perspective, that concerns me because the tech moves so quick. So anyway, I digress. Back when we started the build, it was to be internal combustion. We had dipped our pinky toe into the EV retrofit market. We were happy with what we did. But I started finding myself building this like mental list of capabilities, functions, double stopgap safety, like things that the market was not addressing. And as I'm often driven by, in this vehicle, we wanted to address those priorities which we had yet to see done in the market. We also had concerns such as the state of the art in our space with EVs. Let's say you went to the top of the mountain to a ski lodge and you juiced it up overnight and you're 100% charged, and then you went downhill for a while. Well, where are those charged ions gonna go? A ball of flames, unfortunately, is the most probable direction they're gonna head, so no one was really addressing that. Also, we're still seeing a dysfunctional infrastructure for EVs here in America, and I think Europe's a little bit more on their game. It's sort of like the VHS versus Betamax time in technological development, and unfortunately we're seeing a lot of sabotaged or poorly maintained networks with notoriously crap customer service that our friends in the media, and Matt Farah, Johnny Lieber, I'm seeing a lot of people and end users get very frustrated by that experience. So we don't want to be married to just one charge network, so we wanted to make sure that we could be viable, like with the Chatamo fast charge municipal network, as well as compliant with the Tesla chargers. Thermal management, that was another thing. At most, you'll see the EVs in the aftermarket space today, they'll have a little clear canister and there's like coolant in there, and they have a little 12-volt motor, and that coolant will cycle, I'm not really clear to where or how, but maybe it goes through chill plates, and that was the end of the story. In reality, if you look at motors and controllers and batteries, right, and let's say you look at the graph of their thermal cycles, the peaks and valleys and the demands when you're driving an EV of those three systems have nothing to do with each other. That's a whole nother complicated shit show, because you need to have a central thermal management system that is then plumbed and monitoring each of those systems' needs and responding to their needs with distribution of the coolant or the heat when appropriate. That, if I had to break it down to the single largest pain in our butt in the development of this vehicle, that would be it. I'd also say that it's weird in that this is like the Wild West in EV tech. So things are happening and evolving so quickly that we thought we were done. And then we took it to the Quail Lodge show, and we won a lovely award there, which we're proud to have won. But we also had a couple conversations with, it turned out, a couple of the key suppliers of the content that was in the vehicle at that time. And they're like, hey man, we just came out with a new one that runs a Dash 5 fitting and has better this capability and can dual monitor. It's like, oh man. Fortunately, as I said, this client's become a dear friend. He has had several icons, still owns many of them today. And at that time, if someone new to us came off the street and said, hey, I want to do an EV and I want it to be pioneering and cutting edge, I would just say no, because in all honesty, I I find myself in a position with our learning curve and the way the industry was changing so quickly that I couldn't give someone a set answer to how much money and how much time. But with the level of trust and the friendship that we've developed with the client that we took this commission from, he was cool with me flat out saying, honestly, like, hell yeah, I want to do it. And if I'm going to do it, we're going to do it this way. We want it to have all these key functions because we're not seeing anyone else do it. And this is definitely the future. But I can't tell you how long it's going to take. And I frankly can't tell you how much it's going to cost because there's just too many unknowns. It's a perfect guy. Unfortunately, he, like me, we're both geeks. We both dig tech. When we hear that there's a later and greater evolution of content already built into the car, I already knew the answer, but I reached out to him and like, so now so-and-so has this whatamajigger that can do A, B, and C, and we only could do A before. And he's right there with me. So we did a lot of backing up and evolving. Then we finished all that, and then we backed up and evolved again because AEM really is the first company to take serious responsibility in this space, to come out with a controlling network that could monitor and bring everything together like a conductor and make the orchestra hum together versus standalone things that sort of patch together. So again, we backed up and we integrated AEM's product, and it actually ended up becoming a key test bed for them. So that's a little bit of the drama in the road to creating this vehicle. But we're super happy. There's things that we learned from it that we'll definitely do again. There's a couple things we learned from it that we won't do again. One tech thing that's available now is a gear reduction solution. Because in a perfect world, in a transmissionless EV, which as I said, I think is the way to go, the ratio is a little off from the rate of spin for an electric motor and where and how it displaces its energy to a conventional ring and pinion. Even just physically, right? Any conventional gear ratio available is not going to get you to the ratio you want. The physical demand of that ratio would mean your ring and pinion gears would be so absurd you can't package them, and it's just not possible. So there are a couple gear reduction systems out there that we were tempted to use, but from my research, they're all planetary gear based, basically, and or repurposed from the marine world, where noise is not a concern. Well, you retrofit a vintage vehicle as an EV, you already have a lot of rattles you're going to be chasing that you never would have heard over a big-ass V8 in the past, but running the planetary inlines just didn't seem the way to go. Now, today, literally within the last 2 quarters, there are 3 different solutions that have come out that we're really excited to play with. It's a fair compromise in this vehicle. This vehicle is capable of, I think we have it speed limited at 120 miles per hour. At the end of the day, it's a compromise, and me, the client, the whole team, we're comfortable with where we landed. So for you EV goobers, let's get into the technical specs. Motors. We ran dual AM Racing permanent magnet motors, companies more commonly known as AMR. They've actually been acquired since we did this build, and coincidentally, the acquiring company also acquired Reinhardt Motion Systems, which is what we ran for the controllers. So we must have been barking up the right tree, it seems. So we're running dual Reinhardt Motion System 150 kilowatt motor controllers. The AMR motors, there's 2. They're inline. They're fit midship where the transmission would have originally been. And those are putting out 320 newton meters each, approximately 235 torque each. So that's close to 500 foot-pounds of torque. And you can tell this thing's damn fun to drive. Those are 150 kilowatt each. 200 horsepower, but I don't really believe horsepower ratings when it comes to EV, but people are used to that term, so we'll stick to it. So in essence, we're delivering 470 foot-pounds of torque and 400 horsepower. Horse is long gone. For batteries, there's some new stuff that I'm anxious to try on our future EV projects, but for now, We went with a Tesla system. It's pretty hard to beat. 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, so 96 cells in series. We're running at 400 volts and 225 amp capacity. Now we distributed the batteries for weight distribution because we still wanted this to snake through the canyons and be fun to drive. Almost all the batteries are down low. Up in the engine, you'll see my ridiculous V8 engine, which there is no motor. The lead sled Mercs have been an iconic piece of American hot rodding legend since back in the day. Literally since they were brand new, they were a very, very popular car to modify. So James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, through to Stallone in that silly movie Cobra. They've just remained a big part of American hot rod lore. So with that in mind, I always kind of get bugged when I see EV conversions and there's like a soulless black box thingy with maybe like some LED adhesive strips on it with like an underglow. And it's just kind of heartless for an old gearhead like myself. So in keeping with the design language of the old hop-up gear from back in the day of traditional hot rodding, I designed our engine to have the look of an exaggerated V8. It's all machined aluminum. It's silica blasted in the low recesses to give it that cast vintage alloy look like the old Edelbrock speed equipment, etc. I stopped short of doing Stromberg 97 simulated carbs. I almost went there, but it looked pretty cool, so we stopped. We did take the time to use the old style cloth braiding that you would have seen on the original wiring harness on a vehicle of this era. And we had custom black and red wraps made that go on top of the high voltage orange. Now you can still see the orange for service and safety and all that, but it just kept it with that vintage vibe. And we've had a couple funny experiences with that over the years. So for example, my dear friend Alan from Revival Cycles down in Austin, Texas, he and I met up at SEMA and we were doing this kind of whatever, Two Talking Heads interview about the car when we were done with it the first time. And this guy just sort of shows up and wedges himself between us and totally takes over the video. Check it out, it's pretty damn funny.
And vibrations or whatever,
it can be
failures.
yours, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we want you to enjoy it, and if we give it to you and it doesn't work,
then
the
no
only
one's
way
happy.
to find out is test.
Yeah. 600 to 800 miles on anything we build.
Exactly.
This beast, 3,000 miles or more, because I really want to make sure we're good
yes,
and done. Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You charge us on 110?
Excuse me?
You charge
If
it
you're a
on 110?
patient man, yes, you can charge it on 110.
Well, that should be illegal.
Why?
You're not paying road tax,
Yeah.
and if you're charging on 110, it's not efficient.
Well, that's why I don't recommend it. You should be
gotta
doing it
choose
220
at least.
from your solar array or from clean power. A lot of people, such as yourself, perhaps, are saying the power source is still
What is
coal-based.
clean power?
Clean power is hydroelectric. Clean power is solar.
Hydroelectric isn't clean
Why not?
because it's heating the water when it's going through the turbine.
Would you rather burn coal?
Oh, you betcha.
Would you like to reuse that hot water for other utilities that have value to society?
Oh, you know, see, let's get real here. California has cut us off from burning coal in Canada.
Yeah.
Well, the coal in Canada, that smoke fertilizes thousands of acres of farmland. And now, with government subsidies, they're shutting down the coal. Where are they getting the government money from? Taxpayers.
Well, yeah, now our genius new president is promoting coal, so maybe that'll turn around for you.
Well, it certainly will in farm area. I can see where you don't want to burn coal in LA. I can honestly see that.
Yeah.
But when we're out in the middle of nowhere burning coal and it's actually fertilizing farmland and we're being shut down, that's not right.
Here's an interesting
with
thing,
this
though.
type of technology, though, you really could develop a hybrid system that you could burn coal into a steam plant and produce electricity to drive the rest of the system, so you could extend your range and base it on coal.
Or I can make it an amphibious car and we could have a hydro generator as well. But honestly, here's something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand. The distribution of CO2 in the world is 1 particle per 1 particle equal around the world. It doesn't matter if you're in the remote, beautiful countryside. It doesn't matter if you're downtown Beijing where you can hardly breathe,
then you don't know
or in the
anything
LA
about
basin.
CO2.
It's everywhere.
You don't know
Right,
anything about CO2.
Well,
You might have a
CO2
point because I'm not an
Because in
environmental
Canada-
engineer.
In Canada, we're CO2 short. We're CO2 negative.
It's all those trees.
And we're going to
It's your fault.
trees and crops, growing crops, and guess what? We're negative carbon, and we're going to feel the pinch here. Because if you want to make a raindrop, you got to have a carbon particle or a dust particle to make a raindrop.
Yep.
It's physics.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are you going to do if there's absolutely no carbon?
Then you got a problem.
You're going to cook.
Well, we would collapse if we had no carbon, but I think mitigation and management is critical.
Oh, it is.
That
But
I dropped
Exactly.
the mic with that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Sorry, no,
so-
we were in the middle of an interview on camera.
you're on 3 million people in LA, or 10 billion, right? And you're making up rules for us up there, and there's 30 million in the whole country. My nearest neighbor is 3/4 of a mile away. You think that he cares if I start up a diesel truck? No, he ain't gonna care.
Well, it might be a bigger problem than we can solve today here at the car show, but I think that the new technology is definitely going to start to move in the
mean we're
direction
on
of making it all
TV?
make sense.
We're not gonna be on TV, are we?
I think the other thing that's a challenge also is the many
boy,
different
here we go.
perspectives and different cultures.
It is very
Okay.
so we know exactly.
yeah.
We got to give you credit.
Okay, go ahead then. Okay, a gas station. You go to a gas station, the pump shut off. How many drops of gasoline did it take? 7 drops of gasoline. What do they lose to charge a car? 7% electricity between the power plant and the car has lost in line loss. Never mind the heat produced to transform it up, transform it down. The windmill, carbon fiber in the windmill. Every time that thing goes around, it's flexing this way, that way, this way, that way. It's shedding carbon fiber. That's not good for your health.
Yeah.
You go to build a house, the cement's too high price. Why is it too high price? Because they used up all the cement building a stupid windmill.
All right, hang
All
on.
right,
We got to get back
get
on
back to
cars.
it.
Thanks for
talking
chatting
to you.
with us. All right.
So where I want you to go with this,
Oh,
because I'll probably have a
humans.
cut in
Oh,
there.
you have
We're
to
gonna
keep
we're
that.
gonna have to.
You
we're
have
gonna-
to keep
we'll
that.
keep some-
So we're kind of toying with him like two cats with a mouse, but the guy was just out of his mind, bitching about, them windmills are throwing off flakes of carbon. What do you think that's doing to the environment? And it was just, he literally said, I don't remember if it was on camera or not, this should be illegal. So with the exception of that guy, it still engages the traditional car community and the old school hot rodders. I take it to Bob's Big Boy, I lift the hood, and they're like, damn! And it takes them a minute to cycle and go, wait, what is this? But they're already engaged. And I think culturally that is an important touch note. Right? When it comes to the drive, this is just one of those vehicles you can cruise in all day, no drama. It's smooth, it's quiet, but then when you want to get rowdy, the suspension, the ZR tires, and the performance, it's just like an alter ego, and it comes alive. It's so much fun. I hear people complain, oh, EVs are soulless, there's no performance, it's boring. To them, I say, you haven't driven the right one. I think there can be a balance between new school and old school sensibilities with electric cars. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that realistically we're all a little bit numb to the fact that the exterior design is so soulless on so many modern vehicles that the only thing that we still can have an emotional relationship with is the infotainment screen or the performance. And granted, I miss the roar of the big old V8 and all that. There are going to be better and better technical solutions for that. But when you can combine the grace and the continuity of design and all the little billions of little details that you can only find in a classic vehicle with the state-of-the-art performance, to me, that's when an electric vehicle is still a visceral, exciting game changer and just makes a world of difference. So I can be cruising along all chill, and then I can go like this, and we are not chill whatsoever, and damn, that's fun. But tires don't break free. The way we have the displacement of the EV power mapped is so that you're not gonna lose traction off the line if you're gonna yeehaw it.
meter it. So in the AEM software, we're able to not give you really full throttle off the line, and then it ramps up and spikes when we know you're at a point that you're going to maintain the traction. But with no transmission gear shifting, it's transmissionless, right? So it's like a freight train of torque, man. When this thing gets going, it's just a push in the ass. Like, it just hauls. There's no shifts, there's no drama, there's just a staggering amount of acceleration. And it's funny because at first I was like, yeah, it's pretty quick, but you know, without all the traditional drama of internal combustion, that is part of the sensation of, wow, I'm going fast, that we're also used to. When all it is just copious acceleration, it almost tricks your brain for a second. You know what I mean? Like, until you look down and realize, oh, I'm doing 80. Like, and you just left the on-ramp, you know, it takes a second for you to add up and go, oh, damn, that was fast, because again, you don't have all the drama. With the interior design on this one, though, we really wanted to keep it nostalgic. We wanted to obviously honor the patina, and you know, we had to do some pretty significant changes to the dash layout to depict all of the requirements of the electrical system. But with the textiles and the layout, we really had some fun and wanted to keep it in keeping with the original design language of the original car. And we also wanted to complement the patina. So you'll notice there's two different leathers utilized on this interior. And the green I had done custom by our friends at Moore & Giles to match the body principal green patina. Now you'll notice the piping and the lower kick plates, the speaker covers in the front rockers, package tray, and a bunch of other details. We did that taupe leather with a bit of texture to it. We also hand stitched and wrapped the steering wheel with it. That's playing off of the deeper patina rusty areas on the body. And then the textile, my same old usual trick, where I utilized a textile intended for the high-end sort of outdoor furniture market, but it had such a great retro vibe to it. It's super durable, and it ties in all of the principal colors of the interior. For the headliner, I went with a very traditional mohair, and then we did the visors in the mohair as well, and then we snuck in a little trim of that taupe leather, and then heat embossed the icon lizard at center on those. Door panels, the layout and trim is all stock. Power windows are operated, but of course, through the manual crank. The armrest, we elongated the form a little bit. That's sculpted in hardwood before being covered in the leather and the fabric. And then the original Mercury trim up here is just too cool. The patina on the inner garnish, like all stock, you know. We did modify at the bottom by using our taupe leather for your sill scuff area, which I think will be better long-term than the original layout. Rear seats also dead stock. Let's talk about the dash. So, clock is still a clock, although now it's 12-volt and digital, so it actually is reliable. We kept the stock style lighting, and that it's a warm light, but it is LED. Now the stereo, such a cool aesthetic. We left the original frame and face of the stereo, but then now the principal volume on-off control excites the digital sound processed audio system, which is Bluetooth dependent straight to your phone or whatever. And then the knob behind it is for the bass circuit. Let's talk about the dash a little bit. So Beautiful stock dash design. There's really no point in arguing that. The original gauges had a principal speedometer with smaller satellite gauges flanking it. We could not really, without too many compromises, modify and repurpose those for all of the electrical readouts that we wanted to support. I think a lot of times when you see EV conversions and they have some generic voltmeter, charge meter, it just kills me. Just like a conventional ICE custom car when there's some like store-bought gauges and there's just no design continuity. So we worked with a local California company called Andromeda, and what they let us do is they gave us the ability to connect it with the AM electronics and have all of the feeds for all of the signals needed for the gauges to be integrated in part of that standalone system. Then we'd work to design what looks like the original analog gauges, because they were, again, like the font and the layout and the hash marks and everything were so cool. So I worked hard with my team to emulate that analog look, although it is a digital screen. So now you have motor temperature, you have controller temperatures, you have battery temperatures, you have charge rate, like a gas tank, empty and full. You've got amps and you've got voltage. And then of course you've got gear selected. Where the traditional odometer would have been is now percentage of range remaining. And then your typical speedo, except now it goes up to 110. That being rectangular meant that we had to customize and do new sheet metal work to change it from that crown to one that matched the principal dash profile, but with our rectangular digital screen. So we faked that patina, and then the principal rectangular form where the satellite gauges are, we also customized, and that became actually a great spot for our AC vents. So obviously this car never had AC. It had a heater with no vents, just a dump point. So I took inspiration from the factory famous Merc grill, and we simply did those vertical slots. So you have two principal AC vents, and there's stainless mesh. It's kind of hard to see, but it's behind the CNC piece to the left and the right of the gauge pack. And then to the right of the stereo, between the stereo and the glove box, we laser cut more of those vertical slots, and that becomes your AC vents for the passenger side. Of course, you still have floor output and you still have defrost function, but there's that. The factory knobs for like the lights and the wipers and stuff, killer design. So we really just expanded upon that. On the original car, some of them were metal, some were plastic, and some were sort of parts bin from other applications. So we just took the one that we thought was the coolest. I modeled it in Fusion 360, and then we machined it to be compliant with our gauges. Another cool detail on the factory dash were those little rectangular indicators that told you the function of each switch. Only a couple had it. Frankly, I don't remember which, but I'll show you in the old photos. So we just expanded upon that and made a full set. So we thought spark would be fun for ignition, and then brake, and then the brake indicator light is repurposed Korean War era military aircraft stuff. Then you got fan, vent, temp, lights, and wipers. Fog light switch, super cool. We tricked it through a relay so it lights up when the fog lights are on, which is really nice. And then obviously we converted the fog lights to LED 12 volt. What else do we have here on the dash? It's pretty much it. It's really a beautiful, simple dash layout. The steering column, of course, is the modern icon, typical design architecture from our friends at I Did It. Tilt and breakaway, and then the Borgenson joints for the intermediate shaft are another safety breakaway point as well. The steering wheel is all original down to the honest patina. We replaced all the glass, so it is tempered modern safety glass, but we introduced the original sort of very light Coke bottle green tint, which is just part of the charm on the original glass. So I was really happy that we were able to keep that through our supplier network. It worked out really nice. Of course, all weather stripping is brand new. We have added copious bonus weather stripping and layers and layers and layers of Dynamat down to the full body shell is Dynamated. Obviously, one of the unique challenges when you're electrifying a vintage vehicle is if the rattle chase is not enough of a brain drain. When you're electric, oh my gosh, what a brain drain. We spent hours and hours and hours chasing it down, but we nailed it. It's actually super quiet. You get a couple creaks here and there now and then, but totally acceptable and sort of part of the character of the vehicle. We built the front speakers into the body. So there's stainless steel little dog dishes built into those kick vent areas, which retained the sound quality but allowed us a flush fit. Then we used the micro mesh stainless steel as the speaker covers. Rear speakers are built into the package tray, again flush fit, and the base is entirely hidden. All the hardware in the steering column I designed to match the original dash knobs, and then the one for turn signal and tilt is inspired by the original Bakelite plastic design, kind of like a spoon handle, kind of nifty. The rear ashtrays are cool. I don't think anyone's ever going to smoke in this thing, but they were just too cool to remove and delete. All of the dash switches have very low output LED to assist legibility at night. You'll find power ports for 12-volt accessories via USB or the old cigarette style input under the center of the dash. Carpets are my beloved Hargarten square weave, edge hemmed in the taupe leather. The carpets are a multi-layer system that are completely removable for any needed maintenance to the electrical system. So they're all 3 layers in total with the Rolls-Royce blind snaps, and yet again copious layers of Dynamat within each layer. AC is our vintage air unit, modified to be compliant with our EV system, and then the heater we had to completely gut and do an electric heater system that works really well. In fact, one could argue it works too well until we modified it and removed one of the coils. One of the significant pioneering aspects of this build is that we're taking responsibility for thermal management of not just the motors, but the motors, the controllers, and the batteries. Now, each of these systems has unique thermal demands and spikes and cycles. So there's a pretty complex network of plumbing that monitors through the AEM electronics the thermal standards and status of all systems independent of one another. So we really needed a monster AC compressor such as the one we chose to dual off that well. The rims are a one-off variant of the Icon forged aluminum wheels. We patina powder coated them in a nice unique finish that's really pretty much designed to be visible. Reproduction Mercury hubcaps grace the centers. While we are running the Icon Brembo brakes, we probably didn't need to. Now we're doing a large bore Wildwood master cylinder with no power assist of any kind. We did that not only for the sort of cruiser retro hot rod vibe of the vehicle, but the fact is that the regenerative braking system does just so much. It takes a majority of the responsibility away from the mechanical brakes to really handle most of your deceleration needs. Plus, of course, you get the regeneration of the electrical energy. For tires, we're running 235/50 R18s paired with 245/55 R18s in the rear. One compromise we had to make that still bums me out is to fit the chassis in a wide contact patch tire. We were unable to maintain the original rear skirts. And they look so cool, I kind of miss them. We went through several drive chassis as we engineered this vehicle. We tried carbon fiber shafts. We we tried aluminum shafts, all sorts of tech options. In the end, we went back to a monstrous, good old-fashioned steel drive shaft. We found we had greater ability to balance it. I think in the future, I'm quite anxious to build our electric icons with a 2-to-1 gear reduction solution in line. This vehicle tops out at about 100 miles an hour, has great speed off the line, but there is a fair amount of vibration radiating, we still think, from the drive shaft, or maybe the balance inside of the twin electric motors. Honestly, we're really not sure, but it's only in a very specific range of speed, so we just had to call it. But I do believe that if we're able to reduce that drive shaft speed with a 2-to-1 reduction solution, we'll be obviously spinning half the RPMs, and then in the gear ratio in the rear end, we'll be able to compensate for that to still give you ridiculous power from a dead stop.
This vehicle, and a lot of it's my own fault, took 5 years for us to complete. Now we could have said good enough, we're done, and shipped it out 2.5 years ago. But that's not how I roll. Unfortunately, I'm not always looking at the P&L. I'm looking at the quality, and I'm looking at the future. I want Icon to be a brand that people remember long after I'm gone. I want it to mean something. If you know this brand, I want you to know what it stands for. Okay? Thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. And we'll see you on the next one.